So everybody can talk about, this act and that act and what was done in history, but ultimately it really all stems back to the Bible. Millions of people will refuse to see that. Again, no different than the people back in the day that didn't want to acknowledge Jesus, and which is why Jesus said this was not his kingdom, right? I mean, it's very simple. It is not his kingdom because this kingdom wants slaves. So wants debt slaves, wants chain slaves, any way they can get them, they want them. I mean, we still have trafficking going on. Biden's administration is the biggest traffickers in the world right now, along with many other people, because that's what this world is about. It's not about America being the slave owners. But why would they put on America? Why would our media, who walks a very dark path, okay, whether they know it or not, and as far as I'm concerned, I think they know who they serve. But why has there been this big push by BLM? I don't support BLM. It has nothing to do with what color you are. It has to do with we're a created organization. They're tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. They're tied to organizations that oppress women for sure. But more than that, it's all been designed to make America into this slave country. Because what do they hate the most? They hate that America, no matter what the lying media says, they hate that America was founded under a covenant with Jesus Christ, with the Pilgrims. That's what they hate. So then what would the Jewish scholars want to attack America? What would the Muslim Brotherhood and BLM want to attack America? Because it's an attack against Jesus. Because they didn't want anything back in the day to do with Jesus, because they wanted everything to operate the way they wanted to. They wanted their slave system to operate the way it was. Jesus might have interrupted that if they hadn't crucified him. And people can sit there and say this argument about, well, if Jesus is God, he could have changed that. No, God doesn't interfere in free will. If he didn't give us free will, then we would just be controlled by God. There's times, though, that God has to intervene. The Tower of Babel was one. They were getting too full of themselves. And when you let people like the World Economic Forum, when you let the wealthy be in control of everything, you see what happens. You see how sick they are in their mind. They're sick, very sick. And people like that, like the World Economic Forum, the head of, BlackRock, all of these people, all of them, money and power is all that matters to them. And they become so sick, they will destroy the earth because of their sickness. And so there's those times, and the Tower of Babel being one, where God has to intervene, because he said he will not allow the world to be destroyed. And the World Economic Forum, no matter how much they try, which is really their goal, they love to act like they care about the climate, but they really don't. They care about a slave system, a debt slave system, and they don't give a shit what color you are. So, but really what they all hate is America, because what they hate about America is that America's founding was on Jesus Christ. Now, I know there are many Jews that believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Again, I'm not talking about that, and I'm not talking about every Jewish person. But let's face it, the Jewish scholars are so full of themselves, they're the same as the Pharisees and the scribes back in the Bible. So what do you think they would be? They would hate America because our founders truly wanted a free place. And yet so many bad people, so many bad actors, people that with a love of money and being kings and riches and all this bullshit, kept coming in trying to disrupt that. And where they took up the biggest home ever was on university campuses. That's the reason why those professors, they're miserable people. They look miserable. They never have anything positive to say. They stand with the most god-awful people because they themselves inside know they're god-awful too. Does that seem like I'm judging? Yeah, the Bible says to judge, just not to condemn. God-awful people. God-awful people that with the universities, with BLM, with the Jewish scholars and Jewish organizations and the Muslim Brotherhood, all packed together to get on an agenda to destroy America. That's what it's about. So all of those Jewish people on TV, and I don't even care what Trump says in this regard, because it's the truth. There is no excuse for the Jewish scholars to have stood with BLM, because you're standing with the Muslim Brotherhood. How could you stand? Well, you did it because you both, the Muslim Brotherhood and the Jewish scholars and those Jewish organizations, hate America. They hate Americans. Who are the Americans? Americans are the Gentiles. The Gentiles in the Bible. And people like to say, oh, Jesus wanted nothing to do with them. No, Jesus saw a lot of faith out of them, actually. Yes, one of them being a Canaanite woman who had known when she saw Jesus, just knew from seeing him who he was. Interesting, isn't it? Because Jesus, very much his mission was to save the lost sheep of Israel. Yeah, maybe because he knew the path that the Gentiles would go on, that eventually America would come. Just saying. Because the Canaanite woman knew who Jesus was, and she begged him to save her daughter. And at first Jesus said, no, I'm not going to. I'm here on a mission for Israel. And so then everybody thinks Israel is the most important. Okay, yeah, no. But eventually she appealed to Jesus and he said, because her faith was strong. She wasn't afraid to speak to him. She wasn't afraid to say what she showed, what great faith she had. So he did it as she asked. Something to think about. Because, yes, everybody's been taught that Jesus was for everyone, but there's been this hoisting up of Israel, okay? And yet, again, my issue here, and I'm not trying to say Israel's bad, but, really nations should be handling their own problems. But fine if we're going to help them, but we've been helping every nation in the world, and our nation is falling apart. But when we have professors in this country, whether they're Muslim or Jewish, and they have a hate for America, I don't want them in this country. Yeah, does that seem like I'm a racist? No, I stand with the values of this country. And if you are going to hate America, then why do you want to live here? The only reason people that hate America want to live here is because they want to destroy it, so I don't accept it. Really, it's the truth. If you hate America, then you would only live here because you want to destroy it. The fact, that's what it all goes back to. That's really what it goes back to. That's the reason why the history lessons, the media has tried over time forever to act like that it doesn't matter about the Christian values that we know. And Gen X was the last generation to be taught the right history, which was with that history, is that the Pilgrims made the covenant with God. So it's the only country that had the covenant with Jesus Christ. And we have the Jewish scholars that come in and they act like that they're more important, the same way they did back when Jesus walked the earth. Then we have the Muslim Brotherhood, both of these sects, okay? And this has nothing to do with racism. This has to do with just honest to God truth. Moses gave the law. He gave what the law is, right? But it is only Jesus that gives grace and truth. So if you don't know Jesus, then you don't know truth and you don't know grace. Perfect examples. Then you get all of these Jewish professors, all of these Muslim professors to align with people that didn't believe in Jesus, so clearly don't have grace and truth, and clearly go on to desecrate this country and turn this country into a god-awful war zone. I mean, for the amount of times every Ivy League expert university has put on their hate America routines, it's just gotten really old. And yet they try to make it like, oh, they hate the Jews too. Do they? How much could they really hate the Jews if the very Jews themselves have aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood when they aligned with BLM? Yes, somebody like Mark Levin or any of you people out there, maybe you should explain that one to me. Because why haven't you called them out? As much as you call the other side out, why hasn't anybody called out the Jewish scholars and the Jewish organizations and Netanyahu for all of you people standing with BLM, which is aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood? Yeah, it seems to me, no, you're just all hate Gentiles.